Fantastic. Welcome everybody to the Semgrep quarterly product update. My name is Luke O'Malley and I'm the Chief Product Officer and one of the co-founders of Semgrep. Today, I'm going to be joined by Adam Berman, the Director of Engineering for Supply Chain, and Milan Williams, the Product Manager for our open source and pro engines. We're super excited to have you today. The run of show, we're going to review what we've done in the past quarter. Should take about 45 minutes, and then we're going to leave about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. Throughout the session, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We have folks who will answer them as we go, and anything that we don't answer, we'll reserve time for at the end. I wanted to begin with just a little bit of background, kind of stepping back and talk about Semgrep as a company and what the mission of the company is. So our mission, the thing that we wake up every morning to try to tackle, is to profoundly improve software security and reliability. The reason why we think that this is so important is because software is eating the world. I think everybody on this call can agree to that, but it's still cheap to exploit. And that insecurity we view as a tax on society's progress. So that's the kind of reason for existence of Semgrep as an organization. What we're trying to do over the next year, maybe 2 years, is build the world's most popular application security platform. And we want to do that with a suite of simple and engineer-first products. So our focus is on the engineer, and that is either security engineers or software engineers. We want to lead engineers to find, fix, and prevent the bugs that matter in their software. So a quick review of what the Semgrep platform looks like. At its core, we have the open source engine and the pro engine. These are both of our code scanning engines. So on the open source side, it's a very, very fast code scanner that's really good at analyzing individual files. And then we introduced the pro engine, which is really more for vulnerability detection. And this is used to actually look across file boundaries and function boundaries to identify issues. On top of those engines, we've now built a supply chain product and a code product. The supply chain is for securing your third-party dependencies, often called software composition analysis, or SCA. And our code product is to secure your first-party code. That's a SaaS product, software application security testing. Both of these get consumed through our cloud platform. That's what you are accessing if you log into semgrep.dev. And that's really designed to deploy, manage, and monitor that Semgrep suite of products at scale at your organization. And recently, we introduced Assistant, which is AI augmentation of workflows. So that's something that's going to provide automatic remediations and fixes, triage recommendations, and eventually rule writing help. So that's high level, the components that we have as of today for the Semgrep application security platform. So in the past quarter, it's been a very, very busy quarter at the company. And there are two kind of big, maybe leading announcements that I want to start with. So the first is that Semgrep Supply Chain is now free for all to use up to a 10 contributor limit. So previously you had to be a paid team tier customer to get access to supply chain. And we want everyone to be able to self-serve and try this themselves. So that is now free. We also work to make Semgrep even faster. And faster in this case is kind of encompasses the entire workflow and experience of using Semgrep. So both actually configuring it and deploying it, particularly for GitHub.com users in this latest release. And also if you're either trying to write rules in the Semgrep playground, Semgrep will now run continuously in the browser. And if you're working in VS Code, it'll now scan on every single file save. So these things for us just encompass super quickly kind of our operating principles of the company. So we want to do things fast. We want to relentlessly improve. And ultimately, we realize that users are the judge. So we don't judge our work, but everybody on this call does. So through that lens, these are all of our takeaways from the launch, all the things that we actually shipped. What we're going to do over the course of the remaining time that we have, I'll talk about the first couple items. Then I'll pass it over to Adam, who's going to talk about our supply chain specific items. And then Milan will close us out speaking about VS Code, that very, very cool in-browser running of Semgrep called Turbo Mode and expanded language support. So first up, we have supply chain for everybody. So there is a limit. It's up to 10 monthly contributors. But you do not have to be a paid customer anymore to try this and use it. So particularly for small teams, self-serve, get started. If you're a large team, pick a small project to start with, and you can see what supply chain looks like and how it works. We wanted supply chain to be available for a really long time to everybody. So we wanted some kind of free offering here. And we debated it, and we weren't sure, hey, like, what features would we include for free, which ones would we have be paid. And we really decided that any kind of restriction at the end of the day would be artificial and would withhold security, particularly from small teams. So what we decided is, hey, we're just going to make this available to everybody, but we'll have some kind of usage limit that's set on it. So for anyone on the call, please go check this out. Please try it. If you're an existing user, you've had an account prior to last week, you will have to enable this yourself. We didn't want to enable anything and surprise people with new behaviors. So you'll have to go into settings and you can enable Semgrep supply chain. If you are a new user, this will just be enabled by default from last week moving forward. A quick recap on supply chain. So what problem does this solve for folks? This is going to scan your dependencies, and it's going to look for vulnerabilities where you are actively using the vulnerable method of that vulnerability, of that dependency. What we found is that this results in about a 98% reduction in noise. I'm going to have Adam speak more about this later, but that's really the key selling point for this. And we know how much work security teams are already doing. So we're trying to make work and life a little bit easier. We have also released Code's Pro features. These are the team tier features for everyone to use. We had both the Pro engine and Pro rules that you previously had to be a paid customer to use. So everyone gets these now, and this is to make it kind of philosophically similar to supply chain. We want small teams and large organizations to be able to start right away using the product. You can go into the settings to enable the Pro engine. Because there is a performance penalty for our more advanced analysis, we want folks to be able to opt into that. So give that a try. And you're going to get access to about 500 Pro rules. And those are rules that are written by our security research team that we vet and that we'll stand behind. So I encourage you to try that as well. So in order to make supply chain and Code available to everyone, what we've decided to do is just to upgrade all of our accounts to our team tier and sunset the previously free community tier. We felt like this was a simpler arrangement. As a consequence, we are introducing that usage limit of 10 users. This is a reduction from 20, which is what the usage limit was previously. But we felt that, hey, because we're providing more products and more functionality for free, and also looking at what our startup program pricing was, this starts to align everything and was just a simpler model. So if this is a problem for anybody on the call, if you're an existing user or you're close to that limit, please reach out to us and talk to us. We want to do right by you as we make the transition and improve the pricing and tiering model. Okay, so with that, I want to dive into not just simplifying things, but actually adding some really, really cool new stuff. And the first one that I'm excited to share is zero config scanning. Initially, this is just for github.com. And this is meant to make it easier to onboard Semgrep across an entire organization. So if you have dozens, hundreds, or thousands of repositories, how do you get Semgrep running quickly and easily? The pain point that we've had in the past is that you had to actually add a CI/CD configuration file to every single project that you wanted Semgrep to scan. This is burdensome and often not possible or particularly tractable for large companies. So what we had is customers were coming to us and saying, hey, can you just give me the easy button? I want to give you code access. You have SOC 2, your company is matured. Can you just figure out how to scan my code for me? And so this is our response to that ask. This also sets us up for some really interesting features, like if a new project is created in your source code management system by an engineering team, Semgrep can automatically run on that project now. So I have a quick GIF over on the right. Basically what this is showing is that if you want to scan a project, you can just click to onboard it. You select your project and you can click enable Semgrep. And from now onwards, that project is scanned. This does require a special GitHub application to be installed. We wanted to follow the precedent set by Datadog and create a custom GitHub application for you. So there's some simple onboarding. I've done it several times. It takes maybe 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, but it's very quick and very painless. This is in private beta. So if you'd like to get your hands on this, we'll send out the link afterwards and we'd love to have you. Okay, we've also improved our rule management story. So this one's available for anyone to use right now. It's opt-in if you go to your rule board. And what this is a new policies UI that's meant to make it simple to configure rules in monitor, comment, or block modes. Previously, it was pretty cumbersome to edit thousands of rules if that's what you had deployed. We wanted to make that easier. And just as an example of that, someone I was talking to the other day said, hey, if rules are high confidence and they're high severity, I really just want to show them to developers. So I'd like to leave a comment on the pull request. And now that's very, very easy to actually do and to modify your policy to do that. So in that video, I went ahead and I selected the high confidence and high severity rules and then quickly clicked to make them lead PR comments. So it's a big workflow improvement. Please check it out. And we're very, very excited for your feedback on that. Okay, so altogether, we think that the features that I've just shown you, particularly on the Pro Engine side, particularly on the supply chain side, are critical for running a modern security program. We're very, very excited to have you try them out. And now we'll hand it off to the Semgrep supply chain side.
Thanks, Luke. I'm excited to share what we've been working on to improve Semgrep supply chain for everyone. We want to help our customers secure their applications, and the first pain point for many teams is the constant deluge of vulnerabilities. Tens of thousands of new disclosures per year that AppSec teams must respond to. For organizations with multiple repos or services, each disclosure can turn into a mountain of work, requiring AppSec engineers to build context for each application in order to triage effectively. The worst part about this is that a huge percentage of these vulnerabilities are false positives. So few of these alerts are for vulnerabilities reachable in the code, never mind exploitable. This means that SCA programs are typically super low ROI. So with limited resources, security teams are often faced with an extremely difficult choice. Ignore these vulnerability alerts and accept the risk, or commit to the toil of manually triaging these alerts so they can find the few real vulnerabilities to address. This is a terrible choice. Semgrep supply chain uses reachability analysis to discard a huge percentage of false positives and keep you focused on vulnerabilities that could be impacting you. We do this by combining two different approaches. First, we scan your log file to determine if you're using any vulnerable versions of packages. Then we use Semgrep's scanning and code scanning engine to see if your first-party code exercises the vulnerable piece of the package. Here we have an example with a vulnerable version of Lodash, but Lodash has a couple of hundred functions on it, the vast majority of which can be used safely even at the vulnerable version. The supply chain rule here checks to see if the dangerous function is being called in code. Security teams can click right into the code to easily confirm before working with development teams to prioritize. In order to make Semgrep supply chain hands-free, our security research team stays up to date on the latest vulnerabilities. When a new vulnerability is disclosed, we write high-quality, expressive, precise rules that get deployed to supply chain customers. That way, you don't have to worry about staying on top of new disclosures. Your next scan will tell you if you're impacted. We have GA support today for JavaScript and TypeScript, Python, Ruby, Go, and Java, with more on the way. Semgrep supply chain customers found a ton of wins prioritizing and fixing the most impactful vulnerabilities and reclaiming valuable time from the endless toil of triage. We believe good security tools should be available for all. So as Luke mentioned earlier, we're excited to announce that Semgrep supply chain is available to everyone for free up to the 10 monthly contributors. We're so thrilled to be able to help organizations of all sizes, from individuals working on hobby projects to Fortune 500 companies, secure their dependencies. We're also announcing 2 new additions to the Semgrep supply chain platform, designed to help security teams get more insight into their dependencies and stay legally compliant. The first is dependency search. We know that securing the software supply chain doesn't end with addressing disclosed vulnerabilities. Some packages have vulnerabilities that never receive CVEs. Some 0 days start to get a buzz well before the disclosure. But most importantly, you deserve tools that help you investigate whatever questions you have of your dependencies. Dependency search lets you search through your code base across repos to see what packages are in your system and at what versions. Customers have already used this with great results, helping them remove dangerous packages across multiple repositories and keeping track of outdated versions of packages. Let's say we heard on Twitter that some early version of JSON schema might have a 0-day. Dependency search lets us check across our repos to see if we might be impacted. We can search for a specific version, or we can search for a specific range. With dependency search, we can quickly find out if we might be impacted by the 0-day and take proactive measures from there. Finally, we're introducing license compliance built on the foundations of dependency search. Supply chain security also means preventing legal risk. License compliance issues can be costly, and preventing these issues can be really time-consuming. We want to help teams avoid lawsuits and avoid toil. Semgrep Supply Chain's new license compliance feature helps prevent risky licenses from entering your code base. On the settings page, we can set up a policy that will allow, leave a comment on, or block PRs that introduce non-compliant licenses, while giving us the flexibility to allow exceptions when needed. If we head over to the dependencies page, we have visibility into our current packages licenses so that we can investigate and potentially excise packages with risky licenses. From here, we can also decide to add an exception if we want to allow a specific license for a specific project. We're releasing this feature as a beta, and we'll be adding support for Ruby, better license categories, and more so that folks can build more and more of their license compliance for workflows around Semgrep Supply Chain. To recap, we're expanding Semgrep Supply Chain. Semgrep Supply Chain is now free for up to 10 monthly contributors, and we're also releasing 2 new features, allowing folks to investigate and respond to 0-day vulnerabilities with dependency search, and blocking non-compliant licenses with license compliance.
Thanks, Adam. When it comes to software security, a term flooding our industry is shift left, or incorporating security practices earlier and earlier in the development cycle. And while I think we can all admit it's become a bit of a buzzword at this point, there are good reasons for it. A recent study out of Google showed that developers are 2 times more likely to fix a vulnerability if it's shown to them earlier in the development cycle. And so I think while many of us think that this is nice in theory, shifting left can be practically challenging for many different security teams. Typical SaaS tools can be clunky and complicated, and it leaves many security folks spending months trying to either brute force developer adoption, or they just abandon the idea of developers adopting their SaaS tool altogether. And so Semgrep is designed to counteract all of that. We're designed to be a developer-first tool. It's why we provide a command line tool. It's why we integrate with CI/CD. And it's why we leave PR comments if we detect vulnerabilities. But even with this, PR comments can still be too late for some developers to fix the vulnerability, or in the case of secrets, you'd ideally like to catch those before it's even been committed to better mitigate those security risks. And so that's why I am so excited to announce the launch of Semgrep for VS Code. It's powered by Semgrep Code and Semgrep Supply Chain. The VS Code extension runs on each save for instant developer feedback. It's really designed for developers to catch vulnerabilities and implement secure guardrails earlier in the development process, exactly when they're writing code. So to dive into more specifics on our Semgrep VS Code extension, it's powered again by Semgrep Code, our SaaS product, and Semgrep Supply Chain, our SCA product. It runs on local changes. Basically, it runs on the most recent code you've written. So as a developer, you only see results for the changes you're actively working on. And for security teams, this extension is really designed to be used at scale across your entire organization. Developers can log into Semgrep Cloud Platform and run with all the custom rules you've written in one click. So let me show you a quick video for how it works. On this next slide, I can share you a few different examples. So first, you can see this example of us trying to import a MySQL database on line 4. We're creating a hard-coded secret here. You can see this password. When I uncomment this line and I resave this file, Semgrep flags this as a vulnerability. Similarly, this also works for supply chain. You can see on line 2, we're importing this Lodash package. And again, we're using this .merge function in a dangerous way. You can insert a malicious object here. And when we hit save, you can see Semgrep will notify you that you should upgrade this dependency before using it in your code base. And lastly, if you're a security engineer and you want to get a sense of what things look like across your entire project at scale, you can use the VS Code command palette to scan across your entire workspace and see everything that Semgrep finds. So from there, I'll segue into our next feature. This one is really for our incredible rule writers. So I first want to say on behalf of everyone at Semgrep, I'd like to thank all of you in the community who write rules. We're so grateful for your contributions and the security community at large. It really does not go unnoticed. But whether you've written one rule or you've written 100 with us, you may be familiar with the Semgrep Playground, our online interactive editor designed to help you write custom rules. Typically, to test if a rule is working properly, you have to press this run button in the playground each and every time to evaluate your rule against the test cases. This worked okay, but for really seasoned rule writers, clicking run every time was honestly pretty easy to forget, and it was pretty disruptive to your rule writing workflow. And so that's why I'm excited to share a major upgrade to the Semgrep Playground with Turbo Mode. So now the Semgrep Playground reruns your rule on every keystroke. There's no need to press run anymore while you're writing a rule. If Semgrep detects new matches on your test code, the Playground will automatically update its highlighting and flag them for you, simplifying your rule writing process, keeping you in the zone so you can focus on quickly writing rules and shipping them out to developers. I've got a quick before and after for you so you can really feel what this looks like. As you can see here, we're looking for all cases of print 42 in our Semgrep rule. This is without turbo mode. I'm clicking my run button, getting my catch on line 5, uncommenting again, press run, and then I get both of my matches. Now, if I enable turbo mode, same rule, you'll see the second I enable it, I get my catch on line 5. And when I uncomment this line, I get line 8 as well. So a lot faster, a lot smoother of a workflow. And last, but certainly not least, we've expanded our language support with this launch. So first, we've expanded our coverage from Kotlin, bringing it from beta all the way to GA. We've added 60 new pro rules and upped our parse rate to 99%. We've also added Go to our list of languages supported by the Pro Engine, which includes our cross-file analysis, meaning you can catch more complex vulnerabilities and reduce your false positives. We've also added an additional 60 new Go rules for Pro as well. Both languages are live now, and you can try all of the rules by running with our default rule set. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Luke.
Fantastic. Thank you, Milan. Quick recap then. Semgrep supply chain is now free for all to use up to that 10 contributor limit. Semgrep is even faster. So we showed you how you can now onboard with just a couple clicks across your organization. We saw the Semgrep Playground turbo mode. We saw VS Code, as well as license compliance and dependency search. The team is super, super excited about the quarter. We have a lot more in store for the rest of the year, the next quarter. So quick reminder, we're going to try to do it fast. We're going to relentlessly improve, and we want to know what you think because you are the judge. So please let us know. And with that, I think we're actually well ahead of schedule. So super appreciate everybody. I know it always goes fast when we're presenting. We'll move to the Q&A session at this time and look forward to the questions and participation. Thank you so much, everyone. Very, very excited. Okay. So opening up the first question from Anthony, what cadence does the zero config scanning happen at? So great question. Right now, when you first onboard a project, we'll run our initial scan. Every time a pull request is open, we will scan that pull request, and that's to make sure that developers get immediate feedback. And then we're discussing doing a cadence scan, so likely scanning once a day to make sure that even if you have an inactive project, as new supply chain rules are written, as new code rules are written, you're going to constantly have the latest and greatest that's running, at least on a daily basis. So we'll discuss if that's going to be configurable or not, but so far once a day seems like the right cadence for those who are in the private beta. Awesome. Next up, we have scanning for is it called is technically computationally undecidable. What sort of false positives or negatives are anticipated here? I.e., in a way, how does it cheat? So I'll go ahead and mute myself and I'll have Adam answer that question.
Hi, yeah, for sure, perfection is impossible here. And any tool that claims perfection is not telling the truth here. Semgrep open source does static analysis, and static analysis is going to read through the code and see what methods are called and is anything dangerous getting passed into those methods. We tend to write rules that lean more sensitive, searching for any potential dangerous usage of the vulnerable function. And we found that even extremely sensitive rules that might produce a couple of false positives reduce the number of false positives still by a huge percentage, because so many of these alerts are on libraries where you're not using the dangerous method at all. It's still possible for people to write code that is meant to trick the static analysis system, but we find that in most real world instances, with people writing real code for real purposes, that does a really good job of capturing the real vulnerable usages.
Awesome. So I'll move over to the next question from Vince. The question is IntelliJ IDEA supported? IDEA supported? I'll turn that to Milan.
Yeah, so it's not supported today, but we've made big improvements to the LSP, or the language server protocol, which underlies our IDE and actually parts of turbo mode. So it makes it a lot easier for us to support new IDEs in the future. So I've taken the note. Good to know. Thanks, Vince.
We've got a question. Is Bazel going to be supported? And I believe this is for supply chain. So I'll turn it over to Adam again.
Yeah, I think like Bazel's a pretty complex system, and sort of is like an amalgamation of a bunch of systems. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to plug supply chain into any build system. And we're constantly adding new languages to support, new lock files to support, new build systems. As long as a system produces a lock file, we're able to write a parser to scan it. And so our goal is to support Bazel hopefully soon. But also like Bazel is massively configurable. So we want to make sure we understand from you. If you're interested in this, please come talk to us. We want to learn more about how you're configuring Bazel, how we can make it work for you, so that you can start using supply chain.
Great. I've got a question from Bob, which is about how contributors are counted. So if a paid team has an open source project with external contributors, how are contributors counted? We do not count contribution to public projects. So we are only counting contributors for that 10 contributor limit on private projects. So hopefully that answers the question. And I believe that is actually consistent with other tools. So we tried to do basically nothing unexpected there and just make it boring. Okay, I've got a question from Matt. The new comment filtering looked as if it were happening in real time. Can you confirm if you can filter and comment as an ongoing rule rather than a one-time action? New comment filtering looked as if it were happening. I'm guessing that was in the VS Code demo. Matt, if you have any more context to share, it'd be helpful. Otherwise, I don't know, do we have enough information to answer that? Yeah, so send us another message, Matt, and we'll try to answer that one. Okay, we got a question from Pippin. We are using Dependabot. What are the pros and cons versus your SCA? You want to talk about high level, Adam, the differences?
Sure. So I think the big difference for us is that we do reachability analysis. We're going to help you understand the context of how your code is using the package. And so we're going to be able to classify and help prioritize, focusing on the reachable vulnerabilities first, so that your limited triage time is focused there. I think that's like the big differentiator for us. And we found that customers, when switching over, are able to really reduce their amount of time spent on triage and prioritize the most important vulnerabilities immediately.
Great. So we got another question from Vince. This is going to be a supply chain one. As an AppSec engineer, I'm not sure about the reachability feature. For one thing, it's supposed to reduce noise, but what if it misses something? If we rely on it and not fixing the issue due to a lower risk, this can jeopardize the organization. How do we balance this? Noise reduction versus risk missing a hit here and there?
For sure. And this is controversial. There are some organizations that just like can't get away with the idea of ignoring a vulnerability. You might be in a state where your compliance team requires you to fix every single thing. Even so, reachability can really help you prioritize which ones to fix. Your compliance window might be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Fixing a exploitable or reachable vulnerability within the first day and saving your less highly prioritized vulnerabilities towards the end of that window can reduce your exposure window and really help reduce risks within the organization. But for a lot of folks too, it's just like not a possibility to get to zero inbox. You might have hundreds or thousands of vulnerabilities that you have to triage. We've talked to customers that are certainly in the thousands of vulnerabilities. And so saying, okay, let's fix everything is just not a realistic possibility. For those organizations, reachability really helps them spend the limited amount of time they're going to be able to spend triaging, get to spend that on the most valuable way that they possibly could. Because otherwise, if you're stuck in the state of, okay, well, I have to start somewhere, I'm just going to have to burn down the whole list, a lot of teams are basically forced to say like, okay, we're going to declare bankruptcy. We're not going to be able to get to anything because the median vulnerability we're going to triage is just not going to be valuable enough for us to spend time on. So we're really hoping that we can help folks like really leverage themselves better and spend more time on the higher value vulnerabilities.
Great, thank you, Adam. An anonymous attendee has asked about rule writing, and it may be a little bit hard for people to follow, but the gist of it is if you have kind of a chain of dependencies. So library A gets used by library B, and I use library C. Can I write a rule to detect the use of a function or a method in library A? So I'm going to turn this actually over to Milan to talk a little bit about our data flow analysis.
Yeah, so this kind of thing is possible to catch with the Pro engine. Essentially, that's what it provides. It provides cross-file analysis. So you can check across multiple files to analyze the data flow to catch a vulnerable method that may be crossing multiple functions or multiple files. So yeah, you can write a custom rule that catches this. If you want to PM me on Slack or something, I'd be happy to help you write it too.
Awesome. Thank you, Milan. If there are more questions, keep them coming in. There's one from Joseph, which is just a fun one. Does Semgrep have stickers for local user group presentations? We do. We'd be happy to talk with you and make sure you have some stickers. Let's see, got some new questions coming in. Is there a way to enable engineers, this is from Garrett, is there a way to enable engineers to use the Semgrep VS Code extension without granting them access to Semgrep Cloud and the dashboard/rule board? Milan, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, you can. So they can use a Semgrep VS Code extension logged out. It'll run with our provided default rule set. They don't need to connect to cloud platforms. So yeah, you can access it completely logged out. If you want to use your custom rule though, then you'll have to log in to access that. But it works without that too.
Great. Thank you to Matt, who came back with a clarification on his question. So he's looking to have Semgrep rules that leave comments on developers' code for some projects, but not others. With the new rules and filtering that you have introduced, can you achieve that? So Matt, as of right now, what we have is one basically like policy that's going to apply to all of your projects. We are looking and working on introducing the ability to group projects or filter kind of what rules or comments are going to individual projects. So you'll be able to have more customization and a little bit more fidelity in what you show. So it's not possible today, but we will have a solution for you soon. If you're on the community Slack and you wouldn't mind messaging me, I'd love to connect you to the PM who is building out that use case right now, because that's a use case we expect to support. Let's see. So a question from Pippin. Can we pick one contributor from a repo that has 20 contributors, or must we choose at the repo level for the number of contributors? So I think this one is related to how we're doing contributor counting. So for this one, we're looking at who has been actively contributing to a project in the time period that Semgrep has been scanning. So if a PR, for instance, we're going to count the people who have contributed to the PR. If you're scanning the entire project, we're going to look at people who have contributed to that project within the last 30 days. This is pretty consistent with other tools and something that we're playing with. So Pippin, if you have other questions or you want to go into more detail with that, I'm happy to catch up and see what makes sense there. So we can do right by you. Okay, looking through, this is another one from Garrett, tacking on to a previous question. Are there plans to enable engineers to consume custom rules without being given access to the dashboard and rule board? So I think this is maybe related to the question that you already answered. Yeah, so go for it.
I can touch on it. Yeah, so I think this means like some way to access custom rules, have them scan with custom rules, but without getting access to all to the dashboard and everything. You can do that with some role-based access controls, depending on what role you have the developer set at within the app. But if there's more fine-grained permissions that you'd want on what developers would have access to or not, I'm curious. I'll reach out to you and I want to learn more. So yeah.
Yep. Matt, we will get the link posted. So Matt had a question, is where is the community Slack? What's the short link? We will get you that link right now. So appreciate that. Okay, question from anonymous attendee. Are there plans to have read-only role in the Semgrep app? Short answer is yes. So we have more fine-grained RBAC on our roadmap before the end of the year. So the expectation, we're still trying to figure out exactly how people want to slice and dice access. But the goal would be you have read access. Potentially, you allow only people for specific projects, developers on a specific project, to edit the rules or the results of those projects. Same with visibility. So we've got a bunch of stuff planned there. If you have role-based access control needs, I would also love to chat with you as we plan out that work. Fantastic. And then Pippin asked a good question. What coolness is on the roadmap for the rest of the year? That's a really, really good question. So we are interested in both breadth and depth over the rest of the year. So I would expect that we will have some new products and offerings by the end of the year that have been much requested. So I'll leave it vague at that, but I'm happy to chat with you more one-on-one. And we also expect to go deeper in the products that we currently offer. So I know, for instance, like we're working through policy work. We're starting to do some really interesting work around rule writing, both on syntax to make rule writing easier, help people write rules faster, but also let you iterate on rules across your entire organization. So there's some really, really cool web console like features that we're working on. I know for supply chain, we're trying to go deeper and look at new ecosystems and improve our existing coverage, also make it faster, make sure it works for everybody. And more languages all the time. So we have a number of languages that we are working on that we'll say have been around longer, and I think will be very, very important for customers with lower level projects and work, and also legacy code bases. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And there's a good question about the AI buzz, also from Pippin. Thank you, Pippin, for the questions. Can we talk a little bit more about what this really means for Semgrep? One of the things I want to highlight, so at the very beginning of the presentation, I shared this concept of being engineer first. And one of the things that we think that means from a code scanning perspective is that we are deterministic, reproducible, and debuggable. So we want people to be able to inspect this system and understand why they got the result that they got. That has historically made us a little bit leery of using AI to actually generate results. But what we're finding now is that AI is really, really good for helping provide context and recommendations on a result. So actually producing the result is deterministic, but then we can provide recommendations and suggestions on top of it. So if you look at our recent assistant work, it's really all about saying, hey, given the context of the code and the specific finding, we think that this is something you should pay attention to or something that you might be able to skip. So I think that's a really good application for AI. Same for a lot of the code writing and code generation that we've seen coming out of the LLM world as of late. So that's why we have auto fixes and remediation suggestions that are AI kind of backed. And I think there's some opportunities for us elsewhere in our workflows to use AI, particularly around rule writing. So I'd say our general philosophy is the world has changed. This is an incredibly powerful tool. We have to use it, but we want to use it in a way that is consistent with kind of good engineering practice. And particularly for security teams, we think that means that you have to have reproducibility in your results and in your scans. So that's a high level. I don't know, Milan, if there's anything you want to add as the assistant PM.
I think that pretty much covered it.
So yeah, happy to chat more about that, but thank you for the questions. I believe that is kind of it for our time. So just looking around if there's any other questions that are coming in. Fantastic. We really appreciate the time that you've given us. We realize time is the one thing you don't get back, so we want to use it wisely. We're very excited to have you try all of our new developments. In particular, you'll see that there are a number of items that are labeled beta. Again, this is in the spirit of do it fast and relentlessly improve. So we would love your feedback on those. We'd love to build it with you. Hope everyone has a fantastic day and look forward to seeing you around. Bye.